Lost wave is a term used to describe lost media related to songs and music. Its popularity online has exploded in the last 5 years or so, with massive interest generated in these musical mysteries, many of which stretch back into the 20th century. The song I want to discuss today was recorded all the way back in the 1940s, and to my knowledge has never been widely discussed online. Most lost waves are a case of unidentified media, where we often have the song but don't know the year, artist, or title. However, in this case, we know the artists involved, location, date, and even have photographs proving its existence. Before we get into the piece of music in question, we need a little context. This man is Bing Crosby. Born in 1903, Crosby was easily the most popular entertainer in the world during the first half of the 20th century and enjoyed an insanely successful career across music, radio, television and film, surpassing any other celebrity at the time. His impact on music was huge, and he is often considered one of the greatest male vocalists of all time, inspiring Frank Sinatra to become a singer. He presented himself as a smooth and sophisticated crooner, singing the jazz repertoire of the day and collaborating with other huge names such as Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, and many more. He enjoyed a career spanning over 50 years from the mid-1920s up until his death in 1977. Modern audiences will be most familiar with him through the song White Christmas, which remains the biggest selling single of all time in 2024, with 50 million plus sales. This man is Bob Wills. Born in 1905, he was a Texas bandleader and fiddle player, pioneering the Western swing genre, which blended together country music, jazz, and blues to create an elevated platform for traditional American music. Wills, like Crosby, was a hugely popular entertainer in his day, although his impact was mostly limited to the southern United States between the mid-1930s and the mid-1950s. Still, Bob Wills was a visionary who saw early potential in the use of drums and electric instruments in country music, and led a massively popular touring Western band, Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys. Wills' dances were a huge attraction, drawing crowds of thousands, and his unique musical style influenced many who came to be the founders of rock and roll in the 1950s. Now that I've introduced our musicians, let's proceed with the song in question. San Antonio Rose started life as a fiddle tune written by Wills and his bandmates in 1938. This instrumental was soon to become a massive success for the Texas Playboys in 1940, when lyrics were added and it was recorded with a more up-to-date, for the time, arrangement with jazz-influenced horns. Vocals were performed by longtime Playboys singer Tommy Duncan, who rendered the piece in his signature crooning style, which was heavily influenced by Crosby's. This new version of the song was titled New San Antonio Rose and was the greatest success that Wills enjoyed throughout his career, becoming a national hit in America on the hillbilly and folk chart and then breaking out of the country music genre. As was the case before the prominence of the singer-songwriter, the popular artists of the day would often cover the hit parade. Songs which had risen to prominence would be recorded by multiple different singers, each offering a unique interpretation of the song. Crosby took Wills' song to further heights in January 1941, when Decca Records released his version of San Antonio Rose, opting again for a straightforward jazz-pop arrangement in the style which audiences expected from him. Crosby's rendition reached number 7 on the US pop chart and sold 1.5 million copies. Both the original Wills and the Crosby versions of this song are readily available to listen to, although I can't play them here on YouTube for copyright reasons. However, here's where things get interesting. In 1941, the US had been drawn into the Second World War following the attack on Pearl Harbor, and against this backdrop, our lost song was recorded. Wills joined the army but received a medical discharge in 1943, while Crosby, as a married man with dependents, was not conscripted, and instead it was decided that he would be of more use entertaining the troops to boost their morale. Bing visited US troops overseas, recorded radio broadcasts, and even was asked to read scripts in German directed at enemy forces. Soldiers at the time were polled and actually voted Crosby as the man who had done the most for their morale during the war ahead of the president. Another function of wartime entertainers was to promote the purchase of war bonds, which was a system set up to help fund the war effort by allowing everyday people to invest money into the military. The idea was that you would purchase the bond and therefore inject cash into the armed forces. Then, after 10 years, your bond would mature and you would receive a 2.9% return on your investment. This is obviously a very simplified explanation, but I'm sure you get the general idea. It was only right then that these two musicians, who in a way couldn't be more different, would come together in 1942 and record a collaborative version of New San Antonio Rose, thus creating our Lost Wave. A slick Los Angeles-based jazz singer and a Texas fiddler sharing the same stage. On September 18th, 1942, Crosby and Wills were both in attendance at a war bonds rally at the Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and recorded a one-off version of San Antonio Rose with Crosby backed by the Texas Playboys. Fittingly for Crosby, as a huge golfer, the record was made by the 18th hole of the club's golf course. The book, Bing Crosby Day by Day, provides us with lots of fascinating details about the incident. September 18, Friday. Bing and Ed Dudley travel to Southern Hills Country Club, Tulsa, where they arrive just after noon. At 2 p.m, Bing and Lawson Little team up for an 18-hole war benefit exhibition match against Ed Dudley and local golfer Walter Emery. Bing and Little win 1-up, with Bing having a 75. At 6:15 p.m, Bing sells war bonds and entertains the crowd of 2,500 as he sings San Antonio Rose, Johnny Doughboy, Jingle Jangle Jingle, Sweet Lorraine, Mexicali Rose, and My Melancholy Baby, with Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys Orchestra. The proceedings are broadcast by station KVOO between 6:15 and 7 p.m. War bond sales of $315,125 are achieved, the highest so far on Bing's current tour. Tulsa Daily World wrote on the 19th of September, "With Bob Wills and his orchestra playing, Bing sang for at least half an hour after the bond sale. San Antonio Rose, composed by Wills and made famous by Crosby, was the smash hit of the party. But Bing sang many other request numbers and took time to pass some nice compliments to Wills." Bob Wills' biography, fittingly called San Antonio Rose, notes, "The song was still so popular in 1942 that Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys recorded it with Crosby near the 18th green at Southern Hills Country Club in Tulsa, and then offered to give a copy to the person buying the most war bonds. Leon McAuliffe, steel guitarist with the band, reported that someone bought $250,000 in bonds in order to get that limited edition of New San Antonio Rose." As far as we know, this recording was transcribed to one singular 78 RPM record and then auctioned off. If we take McAuliffe's statement at face value, somebody paid $250,000 in war bonds for this unique collaboration, equivalent to about $5 million USD today. Since that day, the record has never resurfaced, and mentions of it have been scarce in the 80 years since. We also learn from these sources that Crosby sang many more songs with the Wills Orchestra, and the whole collaboration was broadcast on KVOO, a radio station in Tulsa. Aside from these accounts, the best primary sources we have available relating to the recording are these photographs, which show Crosby and Wills together on stage with the Texas Playboys. The atmosphere there on that day must have been phenomenal for fans of Crosby, Wills, or both, seeing these two musicians on stage together for the first and only time. Another later photograph shows Crosby and Wills in Hollywood, which would make sense as Wills did star in several Western films at the time and would have been friendly with Crosby after meeting him in Tulsa. I suppose the question that must be asked is there any chance at all that this recording can be located or recovered? The answer is a little bit more complicated than a yes or no. The most obvious way to find this rare record would be to track down whoever purchased it and ascertain if it's still in the family after all this time. Whoever purchased the record must have had plenty of disposable income, especially for that time, and was most likely local to the Tulsa area. By complete coincidence, Bing Crosby later heavily invested in the development of magnetic recording tape, even providing close personal friend and musical collaborator Les Paul with the equipment he needed to develop overdubbing. However, this was in the late 1940s, well after our recording was made, meaning that unless a second transcription disc was made by KVOO, they likely don't have a full copy of the broadcast in their archive, as magnetic tape recording was still several years away. This also rules out home recordings. I don't think it's out of the question that this recording is still in existence, and it would be an incredible piece of music history to uncover if it were to be found. One of the few articles online about this topic was published by Tulsa People in 2013 and proposes the theory that it's still out there in someone's attic, just waiting to be discovered. The worst case scenario would be that it was mixed up with other 78s and thrown out when that format gave way to LPs and singles in the 1950s. I hope that in making this video, somebody out there might see it and know something about where this recording might be, and of course, I hope that you found this look at one of the oldest, rarest lost waves interesting.